Welcome to Rethink Your Legacy. This is Francisco Servent, your attorney and problem solver at law. This is a conversation designed to help you live out your family's values before you leave this world. That's what this is all about. And, last week we talked about how to protect your kids in the event of an emergency if you parents don't make it home from date night. And what it prompted was a question really was, is it even possible to create a trust in 3 minutes? Because this sounds complicated. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because you know what? Lawyers have been known to make things complicated sometimes. I know just in my own experience with other lawyers. You probably, if there's any lawyers listening to this, and you're one of the bad ones, shame on you for making things more complicated. If you're one of the good ones, keep fighting hard, because we got to make our industry better, and people need help. They don't need things to be more complicated. We saw just recently in the news, county prosecuting attorney Martinez, literally, the guy, just the stories, right? But he just turned in and consented to being disbarred. This was huge. To say, yep, I agree to give up my license. I will never practice law again, especially for somebody at his level, is a pretty big deal. And I just wonder how many times over the course of his career, not only was inappropriate behavior, did he behave inappropriately, or did he behave maybe unethically? But I really wonder for the people who are dealing with his cases, if he was willing to do that stuff, how much was he also willing to make it a nightmare for people to just deal with the legal system when maybe it didn't need to be? I know in our practice area where we do wills and trusts, estate planning, and probate, it happens in probate court a lot where somebody will, this is the perfect example. We had a client come to us to help with his mom's affairs, and she had passed away. They had a pretty simple will, simple situation. But whenever you do have a will, it has to be filed in probate in order to be used after somebody dies. That's how you get it sort of proven that it's not a fake, which, we want to have some level of control over that. So I think that makes sense. But what that turned into is a whole bunch, what it's required to turn into, what just automatically happens because it's the law, is it goes to a whole bunch of legal notices and publication. And then his sister was confused by this and got the advice of an attorney to help her interpret it. And it literally just blew up because that attorney thought this should be more complicated. And we've just seen it happen time and time again. I've helped families with their conservatorship matters for years now. And when you do that, there is a court-appointed attorney who gets involved in the case. So they're a total stranger to the family. Well, I've had so many of these court-appointed attorneys who just exploded the complexity of these things because they thought there was something maybe a little suspicious going on. And a year down the road and $100,000 of fees later, they proved that there wasn't anything suspicious going on. And it's frustrating because in our court system, in order to fight them and get that money back, you got to spend another $100,000. And how can you ask people to do that? It just isn't fair. And so what happens is people go to solve this. They go to plan their estates. They go to create their wills and their trusts, and they go to learn about it. Like me, and I want to fix a plumbing problem or something in my backyard or whatever. Jump online, Google it, right? You start reading online. And you start to just literally get bombarded with tons of information that makes this feel almost impossible to overcome. That's At least that's my experience. When I first started in this practice area 14 years ago, and started to kind of wrap my head around some of the concepts, it felt like nobody out there was making this simple enough for the clients to understand. It was just super complicated. So, holy cow, I just can only imagine. And then I hear this from so many people that we talk to, that this just feels like it's daunting task. I mean, it's holy cow, I got to figure out the tax thing and the trust thing and wills and power of attorney and living wills and probate. And, my whole financial life isn't even in order yet. I don't even really manage my budget that well. I wish my investments were managed better. I wish my taxes were managed better. We already feel like we're not getting all of this stuff done. And now I'm supposed to make decisions about, that probably won't happen for decades, but I'm supposed to make those decisions today. Well, if you want an easier way, if you're ready to just, yep, there is an easier way, the way we do it, which I'm going to tell you about here. And if you're ready to get started, give us a call, 480-750-7788. My team will get back to you as soon as we can. You are watching or listening to this after hours, and they will call you back as soon as the office is open to help you get started. Today, what we're going to cover, we're going to dig into a case study like we do every week on how to make this done for you. You can do it in 3 minutes. We're going to cover what are the legal documents you need as part of this, right? We're going to go through that informational lesson. And then I will help you with a couple questions. So we had a couple questions come in, and I'm going to jump on those questions and we're going to answer them right here on the show. Now, the reason this, I think, feels so hard is because I think it feels daunting because I think lawyers have overcomplicated it. Lawyers are not known for making things easy or simple. And especially in my experience, I've confirmed that. They just don't. They seem to make things more complicated and bigger problems than me as the client really care to know about. I want you to solve the problem. I look at this and I think about it from the perspective of, hey, how do we all go about getting our car insurance? This was kind of the idea that popped into my head because we went to renew our car insurance. And what do? For some of us, it's just automatic. We didn't even do anything. We just kind of keep paying the bill. But for the last time we actually shopped around and we tried to get a better deal, we tried to get better coverage, and we literally invested some time in the process. I looked at how I did it. We pulled the trigger, we got the new policy, and then we went on about our life. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that, wait a minute, because a month later I got the paperwork in the mail and I just kind of chucked it in a drawer. It's this 50-page fine print document that I don't have a clue really what it all means. I didn't read any of it, and I'm okay with that. I literally am okay with that. And I'm assuming that's how most people do their car insurance, is they go around, they shop the prices, they shop the prices compared to the coverage. They make sure you're getting the best coverage for the price. And then you say, let's do it. I'm assuming that's how everyone does it. What I don't think any of us do is we shop the prices for the coverage and then read the contract language in detail, understanding all the terms and each paragraph and each clause, and then review Arizona statutes and Arizona case law about insurance, and then make sure that the contract they've written is valid and has the best clauses in there that make the perfect match situation for me. I've never heard of anybody doing that, right? I doubt that's what you have done for your car insurance either, right? We go around, we find a company we trust, we find coverage that we know is what we're comfortable with, and we pull the trigger and we say, good, I'm protected. The this was a lesson for me in how families could look at their will and their trust. So that's what I'm going to share you. This is kind of my insider secret at Keystone Law Firm. So if you're ready to pick this up and start it for your family, and you want to just dig in and get this done in that 3 minutes, right? Make those 3-minute decisions, then give us a call, 480-750-7788. Or you can jump on the website for the show, radio.keystonelawfirm.com, and you can request a free copy. This week, we're giving a free copy of my book, Pack Your Parachute, where I go into tons of detail about all of the protections that you need as a family here in Arizona to make sure your family doesn't get dragged through probate and split apart. Or if you're on Facebook, drop us a comment and shoot us a question on Messenger, and my team will help you with those answers. And what we're going to pick up here in just a minute is the first case study on how to actually do this. Welcome back to Rethink Your Legacy. I'm Francisco Servent, attorney and problem solver at law, and I'm your host from Keystone Law Firm. What we are answering today, or we're digging into the question, we'll see if you believe it or not, is can you create a trust in 3 minutes? It's been made to believe that it's a big, giant, daunting task to create your will or your trust, that it's just an overwhelming task. I mean, we put it on our to-do list, we know we should do it, but it just feels like, holy cow, this is so big, I can't even take a bite out of that. What I want to tell you about right now is what happened in a really, sad on many levels, sad situation, because this illustrated for me why this is so important, that we make it easy for you, that it should be easy for you, and you shouldn't let it feel like a daunting task. We had, so our office does wills and trusts and all this kind of stuff, right? And we had, about 3 years ago, I think, somebody call our office and say it was an emergency. And we get these emergency phone calls a couple times a year, sometimes more. But we have a very specific protocol to deal with emergencies so that we can help. And it usually comes in the form of, hey, my mom or dad is, they're in the hospital and the doctors have said, we've got a few weeks to live. And it's oftentimes it's an adult child or a spouse who's making that phone call. And when that happens, we have just a cascading immediate effect of the phone call gets handed off to either a paralegal or an attorney. Immediately, we ask a bunch of questions, get some information. Immediately, we start creating whatever documents we can in that, moment. And literally that day, we hustle out to the hospital to sign and witness and notarize and make sure all the formalities are done. And we got one of those phone calls a couple years ago from this son, and his parent had gotten that diagnosis and said that mom has about a week to live. And when, that's a really rough diagnosis for anybody. And I can't imagine if you're going through that, my heart pours out to you. I pray God's blessing on your family. Don't think it's too late to do something. If there's going to be a mess afterwards, don't think it's too late to do something right now. The key thing that he told us was that his mom was still awake and aware, but it wasn't going to last long. So we just triggered everything, just click, click, click started happening. And that evening, we had a will ready for her to sign, witnesses and a notary, and everything was executed flawlessly. It's really hard to jump in an emergency like that and actually make things, get it done in a way that's going to be valid. So in those emergency situations, we can't try to do a giant complicated plan. We're moving heaven and earth just to make sure we get a proper will done. So she got a proper will done, and she passed away a few days later. And what that turned into over the next 2 years was a will has to get filed in probate in order to be proven so that you can use it. And so it did. And what that turned into was 2 years of litigation where it was just a battle to administer her estate. What I need you to know is that she had been saying for years leading up to her death that she wanted to get something done. She wanted to get this done. She wanted to get this done. She knew she needed to do it. She knew she should do it. She didn't want her kids to have a mess. She didn't want it to be a giant, expensive, painful process for her kids. But it was just too hard to take on the project. And so she didn't. She waited to the last minute. I'm glad she at least did that because we did eventually get the court to agree that her will was valid. But you know how lawsuits go. Anybody can challenge anything. And that's what happened. If you are ready to just say, Francisco, I don't want anything to do with that. I want my family I want them to know that I took care of this. I want them to know that I did this for them. If you're ready to do that, then give us a call. It's easy, 480-750-7788, and you'll take your first step. Because what I don't think anybody out there wants to do is to, number one, have to learn all this on your own. I mean, I think in this day and age, there's so much good information online, but there's also so much information online that sometimes it's paralysis by analysis. Too much information, I can't make a decision. And I don't want you to fall into that bucket. I also don't want you to get fearful of having to get the help of a law firm. I recognize that a lot of people don't call law firms because of the stereotypes that exist. Lawyers are intimidating, they're confusing, they're just going to, swindle me out of my money. They're, all these terrible things, which unfortunately, I can tell you, I still see too often in my industry. So I don't want you to have that experience. I don't want you to call get on Google and start calling through the list of random lawyers and just to be, get the phone answered by some rude receptionist who barely even cares about, what you have to say, or even worse, leave a message and never get a call back. I don't want you to call and schedule an appointment that you have to pay by the minute for that appointment. That's just insane. I don't want you to do that. And I don't want you to sit down with a lawyer for the first time and just get razzle-dazzled, confused, and just sign on the dotted line just because you sort of have to hold your nose and get through this. It doesn't have to be like that. And that is why we started Keystone Law Firm way, way back in 2007, because you should not be giving your lawyers a blank check to bill you by the minute. You absolutely not. I prohibit you from doing that. Please don't. What I want you to know is that my industry has created and perpetuated some very serious myths that are hurting you. They're hurting you if you continue to believe them. The biggest one is that you should create your will or your trust, and it needs to fit your situation forever. You're in your 50s or you're in your 60s or you're in your 30s or whatever. You're going to create this will or trust and it's going to fit for when you're 80. Yeah, that is just such a lie. Don't believe that at all. Guess what? They invented these things and lawyers now just barely have started to learn how to use them. They're called computers. And we actually, can save the things we create for you so that later we can come back and make changes to them. And it's pretty easy to make changes to them. it's really neat. And as more lawyers discover this, I think this myth will go away. Ha ha ha, right? This is the insanity of the estate planning industry, is that you should create a will or trust and it needs to fit your situation forever. Because you know what? These clients just might never come back and update their documents. Oh, well, that's just insane, because guess what? Now they're not even coming to do it the first time. I think what it should be is very, very simple, right? Very simple to create, but then as equally simple to update and make changes, right? Just like the car insurance example. It's not that hard to make changes to your car insurance. You just kind of make the change. You just say, here's what I want, and right? It doesn't have to be that hard. So that's why we're covering this question. Can you do this in 3 minutes? If you're ready to start, our first step is a really no pressure, just easy, casual conversation that we call a discovery hour, where we're doing these virtually now, where we're doing them over video, so you can stay home, be comfortable, and you don't have to worry about dragging yourself down to a law firm, and have access to all the information you need. It's like I said, it's called the Discovery Hour, where you will describe your family. You're going to teach my team about your family, your issues, your situation. Then you're going to switch gears and talk about, what are your goals? What are your goals with this stuff? Is it, avoiding probate? Is it making it simple for them? Is it you don't want to be a burden on them? Is it something like whatever, right? Save taxes or whatever. What are your goals? I don't want any lawyer to drag you down some path that you don't care about. So make sure we know your goals, and then we can say, here are the options that are relevant for you, okay? Because not every option is relevant for everybody. No matter how simple your situation is, there's some nuances that you want to make sure are dealt with, that aren't ignored. And so give us a call and schedule that, 480-750-7788, or you can jump on our website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com, and you can schedule it right online. Welcome back to Rethink Your Legacy. I'm Francisco Servent, attorney and problem solver at law. The problem we're going to solve for you today is, can you create a trust in 3 minutes? It's a daunting feat of, effort for families to create their wills and trust. That is a myth that I want to completely get rid of. I don't want you to ever fear getting this done. If it's not the right time to get it done, fine. But I want you to know it doesn't have to be a giant project. Updating your will or your trust actually can be easy. So the first time you create a will or trust, well, maybe not the first time, right? If you maybe you created one 10, 20, 30 years ago, but it's time to really create one that's different. Create that real one, not the one that you just slap together, online or threw together from some forms, or, paid $100 for. We're talking about creating a plan that will actually make it simple for your family. So you literally have some real assurances. Our firm's the only firm that gives what we call a 10x no probate guarantee. We literally give a guarantee in writing, and you can read that on our website, that says, if you go through probate, blah, 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 we pay the probate fees. And so read that, see what that means, because I've never seen another firm make that kind of an offer. What they do is the opposite, actually. They say, your plan, there's all these contingencies that mean we're not liable for anything. And in fact, if somebody sues us after you die, your estate will indemnify us because blah, 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 blah. That's just such a backwards way to do it. So look for our 10x no probate guarantee, because you're creating something that needs to work after you can't do anything to fix it. Okay? So here's the process. In this segment, I want you to know this informational lesson. This is the lesson part of today, okay? You're in school now, haha. Number one, when you first go to create a real estate plan, the typical traditional way is you're going to spend months and months and months and months and months, maybe even a year, digging through all kinds of information and records and reading and learning about taxes and just overcomplicating everything, in my opinion. And you're going to be spending, $300, $400, $500 an hour with these lawyers. And there's not going to be any end in sight because the bills just keep ticking by, keep racking up. And it's just painful. And if I were you, I'd avoid that too. Honestly, I would. So what's the alternative? Create your first version of this at its most basic form. Okay? At its most basic form, all we need are 3 answers to create yours. That's how quick it can be. And in just a minute, I'm actually going to walk you through right here, right now, the actual exercise that proves, hopefully to you, that you can do this in just a couple minutes. Because this first version that you create, it doesn't, and it most likely is not going to be the version that is used, right, when you pass away. When does all of this stuff, when do all of these documents and all of these plans have to actually be used? They don't get used the day you sign them. They don't get used the day you fund your trust. They don't get used at all. I mean, really, they don't. They get used the day you die, which is some unknown day in the future. And for most people, when they're sitting down with us, it's a long time into the future, right? You've got decades left. So the version you create now, we know it's just version 1. This is the beta version, right? You're testing it out. Create something that is simple, that is just, your basic foundation and get it done. Because what's that lets you do? That lets you build on it incrementally to add more nuance or more tax strategy or more asset protection or whatever. Customized language. You can get creative, but I don't think it's easy to try to do all of that the first time you try to do this. So build that first one, get that first base foundation model done, and then over time add little things. Add this, add that, add some asset protection, add a little tax strategy, add a little custom language. Maybe some kind of incentive trusts or not. I mean, you don't have to, but you can. I think that's a much more sane way to do it. We don't, in our life, we don't, with kids going back to school right now, we don't say, kids, we're putting you in school today, and by the end of tomorrow, you will graduate high school. We don't do that. We do it in little bite-sized steps. We have to learn things incrementally. And it is a absolute lie to think you can learn all of this in one bite. So if you're ready to get started, just give us a call. 480-750-7788 and ask to schedule your discovery hour. Because listen, it's not a one bite thing. It's not a gulp it all down in one shot. This is a incremental project. And then the other advantage you get by doing it this way is the decision you make today, it might need to change as time goes on. You might make a decision, A, and 6 months later, you've sat with that decision and you realize, oh, actually, I don't think I really like that decision. Well, fine, good, it's easy, change it. You don't have to be stuck with it. You don't. It's easy to make changes to these things nowadays. Remember, we have these things called computers. It just is easy. So make those decisions, because then as you live with them, you will sort of see how they feel to you, and you'll be able to experience your mind just settling into it. And your mind might feel good about it, and then you can let it go and you can have that peace of mind. Or it'll bother you and it'll bother you and it'll bother you, and you can change it, right? Because if you don't make that decision, if you wait forever to learn everything that there is to know about estate planning before you make that decision, and something happens, an emergency happens in the middle, guess what? You've just given your family a nightmare. So here's how to make this decision quick and easy. You ready? Close your eyes. Imagine for a moment that you don't have another minute on this planet. Just imagine you don't have another minute. It's over. Just imagine, right? I mean, aside from the spiritual consequences, right? If you had just one more second to tell your family, hey, here's who I want in charge of my affairs. Here's who I want to be responsible for winding everything up. Here's who I want everything to go to. What would you say? That's it. You could make that decision right now if you were forced to. And that's all you have to decide on right now. So if you're ready to do that, give us a call, 480-750-7788. I invite you to dig in and see what your family's options are. Because if you aren't prepared, your family is left with a mess. And as people who claim to have values for our families, we can't stick our head in the sand. We can't ignore that this is the responsible thing to do. Guys, the mess that us lawyers are left to clean up after the fact, almost every single time there's an old will or an old trust floating around, and it's so old and it's so out of date and it's so not relevant to today anymore that it is actually the cause of the fight because it just doesn't match life anymore. So please get that old thing cleaned up. Call our office, 480-750-7788, or online, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. You can click right there and you can schedule your first appointment. Like I said, our discovery hour is a no pressure. It's really just an easy, comfortable discovery where you get to sit down with a member of my team and tell us what the issues are, what your goals are, and then we can lay out for you what your options are. It's very simple. We make it very easy for you to understand and actually get clarity around this. So you don't walk out going, oh my gosh, I'm so confused. There's too many options. No. The point of the discovery hour is so that you know what the options are. You don't have to walk out of there with analysis paralysis. You'll walk out of there with clarity. And whether you choose to work with us or not, I want you to at least be clear about what your family needs. You don't need to learn everything there is in the tax code. You don't need to learn everything that there is in the estate planning or probate code before you get this done. You can get the first version done, and then you can tweak it along the way as life happens. That's how we do everything in life. We go and we pivot. We go and we pivot. We don't just say we need to be done. We go and we pivot. So join me as we dig into some questions after the break because I want you to know the answers to these things. Welcome back to Rethink Your Legacy. I'm Francisco Servent, your attorney and problem solver at law. And we're solving this problem today of it doesn't have to be daunting. Can you create a trust in 3 minutes? So we just did an exercise that I hope you followed. And honestly, it can be that simple. It doesn't need to be more complicated. This is your first version of your trust. This is not the last version, right? So get the first version done, get it done right, and keep it up to date. That's the real trick that we give our clients. We do that through what we call a trust care program. That's a lifelong relationship because I know you don't need your car insurance today. You need it when you're in an accident. Same thing. You don't need your will or your trust today. You need it when there's the emergency. And so we've got to get you from here to there with a up-to-date at that time plan. So the questions that came in are, I hope these are helpful. The first one was, it seems complicated to set up a will of trust. Do I need one if my situation is simple? Yeah. So my wife and I have been married. We just celebrated 19 years and we actually met in 7th grade, which it's just a ton of fun for us to think back and how so much of our life we've been together. And we have 4 kids. We have twins, Gabriel and Isabella, that are 13, or actually, 13. We have Sophia, who's 11, and Zachary, who is 8. Our situation is pretty simple. We, that's it, right? It's me, my wife, our kids. We meet a lot. I talk to a lot of families and friends who it's, husband, wife, and their kids. That's pretty simple, honestly. It is. The good thing about that is, it's going to be very simple for you to get this done, but you got to get it done. The big thing in Arizona is that there's almost nothing, I'm going to say almost nothing, that happens automatically anymore between husband and wife. It just isn't. You don't have this sort of automatic everything becomes mine if my wife dies, or automatic everything becomes hers if I die. It just doesn't happen automatically. The other big problem that doesn't happen automatically almost ever is if I'm in a car accident or I have a stroke and I don't die, right? What happens if I just become disabled or mentally incapacitated? If that's me, then my wife, she's got to be able to get to my retirement account. She's got to be able to get to, sell the house if need be. She's got to be able to deal with everything that we have without my signature. And it's tough. It can be impossible, actually. And so even in a married, simple situation, you've got to have a will. Trusts in Arizona are just as easy to set up, but they do a much better job. They actually keep everything private. You stay in 100% control of everything. You can do whatever you want with all your stuff. Nobody's going to stop you. But they do a better job. It's like a trust is the new will. The will is kind of how it used to be done. Now everybody uses trusts, and it's if you ever need to make a change, it's very, very simple. And actually, that goes to our second question, which is how funny. How hard is it to make a change once this is all set up? If it's this big, giant pain in the butt to set up, oh my gosh, I'm never going to go back and do that again. Well, take a breath, relax. It's not. Just like I described here for you today, how it can be very simple. And I do believe you can create a trust in 3 minutes. Making changes is also just as simple. So let me think about this. How do I want to explain it? We had a gal who set up her trust. She has 3 kids. Her husband had passed away. So she created a trust, and it's for her 3 kids, who are all grown adults. And, it's fine. She's leaving it to them equally. So she set it up, and she went through and she wanted to put more time into setting it up the first time. She got it really well done, lots of, bells and whistles. And then everything's done. She went and lived her life. And what I recommend is at least once a year, just like you do your doctor's appointment, you go for an annual checkup, you file your taxes once a year, you get your car in, hopefully at least once a year for a checkup and oil change and all that stuff. Once a year to look through a list of items to see if that affects your will or your trust. And so she did that. She came in once a year, and we go through a list of questions to make sure that nothing needs to change. And if you have a trust right now, if you're listening and you have a trust and you're thinking, how do I know if I need to change? Give us a call. This week, we're giving away a free copy of my book, Pack Your Parachute. So ask for that, and we will send it straight out. 480-750-7788, or jump on our website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com. Click right there, and you can request a copy of the book, and we'd love to get that in your hands. And it'll go through and tell you a lot of this information, plus a whole bunch more. But the checklist is basically about 31 questions that we can rapid fire and see, did this change? Did that change? Did this? What about this? What about that? And it's basically broken into 3 dimensions: your people, your property, your money and stuff, and then the law, right? So those are the 3 things: people, property, and law. And if anything under one of those dimensions changes, then we can say, oh, that means we need to tweak that, or oh, that means we need to tweak that, or oh, we don't need to do anything except record in our file that You did everything, you got an update, we've confirmed everything is still valid, and if something happens in the next 12 months, we will stand behind it and we will fight for you. And so far, we've never had that 1 year time period fail. So the problem in Arizona is there's no law in Arizona that says after 3 years, it's now out of date. There's nothing. In fact, the laws say that wills and trust and power of attorneys don't ever expire unless they say inside of it that it expires. So it's just crazy in Arizona. What I've seen that banks and investment companies, title companies, when they're selling, when a house is being sold, that they have internal policies, their own internal manuals that aren't law. It's just what they say their rules are. Their policies say we won't honor something that's more than X number of days or months. Honestly, a lot of them say 90 days. But in the thousands of families that we've helped go through this, 1 year has worked perfectly. So I recommend you get a checkup once a year. So that's what, 31 questions, rapid fire, and, does something need to change? And if it needs to change, we make it really easy. It's just, we're doing all of these meetings virtually with our clients, either on the phone or video. And if something needs to change, great. We whip up the change and have them come back. We do that through what we call a trust care, through our trust care program. That's where clients create their trust, create that plan. And then someday in the future, we just keep them up to date year after year after year after year so that when the emergency happens, it's up to date and they can rest easy. If you're ready to take care of this, I encourage you, use this as your chance to say, you know what, I've been putting this off for long enough. Here I am in the middle of the pandemic. We all probably, well, not all of us, but most of us, I think, have a little more free time than we ever have had before. And use this as your opportunity. This is your calling, right? This is your chance. Your family is depending on you. And you want them to be able to say, wow, mom really took care of things. Wow, mom had this all organized. She made this so easy for us. You do love your family. You want them to see that love in action every day. That's what we all want. It's what I want for my wife. It's what I want for my kids, is I want them to see through my actions that I was committed to them. And so use this as your excuse to say, husband, wife, we're going to get it done. I heard this crazy guy on the radio and he said, go do it. And it made sense. And let's go do it. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. Or you can jump on radio.keystonelawfirm.com. And we've got a scheduler right there. You can just click schedule your discovery hour and get started right now. So thanks for listening, everybody. Go out and live your family values.